How does that work? Do people get upset at you if you do certain things?
Today, we're counting down 30 of the most interesting takeaways from the Elon Musk biography, and we're going in chronological order so you can get a summary of Elon's life, as well as some practical insights we can all learn from him. Enjoy. Number 1. Elon read up to 10 hours a day from a very early age. He even ran out of library books to read at one point, so he just read an entire encyclopedia. And because he had a photographic memory, this turned him into a walking fact machine.
Once one of the kids said to him, "Look at the moon, it's 1 billion miles away." And he said, "Well, no, it's actually under 250,000 miles away." And they said, "Oh, Elon."
Number 2, he grew up in South Africa and was pretty nerdy with not many friends. He even got bullied and beaten, and his best friend at the time got bullied into stop hanging around with him. He had a pretty poor home life as well. Number 3, because of all this, he moved school, but ended up at a place with a strong athletics culture. This, combined with the fact that Musk didn't really try that hard in the subjects he deemed to be pointless, meant he wasn't on anyone's radar. So when students from his old school heard what he'd become, a billionaire quite literally changing the world, to say they were shocked is an understatement. Number 4, Elon would read a newspaper and identify interesting people he'd like to meet, and then he'd cold call them, which often was actually very successful. Number 5, one of the first signs of true entrepreneurship was when Elon and his friend turned their house into a nightclub on the weekends, charging $5 for entry and hosting up to 500 people at a time. This wasn't because Elon was a party animal, he was actually pretty straight-laced, but he did it to pay his way. Number 6, Elon then created an internet directory startup called Zip2. After they got investment, Elon was no longer CEO, which he didn't really like. But the investors felt he lacked leadership skills, as he often annoyed people with his bluntness and fixing or criticizing their work. He also set hugely unrealistic targets and demanded incredible amounts from others, something Steve Jobs was notorious for as well. Whilst Elon's management has improved over time by all accounts, his style is harsher than some can handle, and things had to be done the Elon way or he'd just end up doing them himself. Many people who spoke of him noted that he cares so deeply for the human species as a whole that sometimes that can come at the expense of the individual. Number 7, Elon sold Zip2 for $307 million, giving him a big cash payout of $22 million by the age of 27. Number 8, Elon then reinvested a large chunk of his millions into X.com to try and revolutionize the banking industry, despite people thinking him crazy. Elon would come home at 11 PM and work even more. He was quoted as asking, "How many hours would a woman need a week? 10's kind of the minimum, right?" And this is because he clearly struggled to juggle work with having any sort of personal life. I mean, he literally used to sleep in his office and then just get up the next day and do another day of work. So workaholic is an understatement. However, when he finally took his first vacation in years, he nearly died of a very severe case of malaria. Number 9. X.com later merged with PayPal. However, whilst many would argue PayPal did revolutionize the banking industry, Elon had much grander plans for the company than simply being a payment processor. However, before he could go and make his vision a reality, another CEO coup took place, and he was ousted as leader of his own company yet again. Number 10. He remained the largest shareholder though, so he got a $250 million payout when PayPal was sold to eBay. Number 11. Many of the people who originally worked on PayPal went on to create other hugely successful companies. In fact, they became collectively known as the PayPal Mafia. These companies include LinkedIn, Yelp, and even YouTube, as well as countless others. Number 12. After this next huge payout, Elon realized he wanted to focus on something bigger and turned to a passion of his: space. He recruited the best minds he could find. For example, he would personally reach out to the top graduates from the best colleges. Thus, SpaceX was born, and his focus became making space cheaper and more accessible, as the industry had kind of stalled. Number 13. His long-term goal was always to colonize Mars. People who knew him well have said that money genuinely never was the main drive. It just found him along the way as he took on all of these crazy ideas. Number 14. That said, people who knew him well also said he did have a pretty big ego. For example, his eyes apparently lit up at the mention of being Time's Person of the Year. Number 15. Musk's first child died just 10 days after being born. When the biographer of the book tried to ask him about it, he simply said he didn't want to talk about it and said it does no good for the future. Number 16. Musk then went on to have twins and then triplets. He's quoted as saying how important it is for intelligent people to have more children, as typically they have less children than people with lower intelligence. Number 17. Whilst working on SpaceX, Elon invested heavily in a startup called Tesla and became the majority shareholder. It didn't operate like a normal car company though, but instead like a typical Silicon Valley startup of young engineers using trial and error. Everyone working there had to give their all to the company though. Elon once told an employee that going to his child's birth was not a good enough reason to miss a company event, as they had to be all in because, to quote Elon, "We're making history here." Number 18. Whilst Musk was now heavily committed to both Tesla and SpaceX, two extremely promising and revolutionary companies, things weren't actually going so well. SpaceX rocket launches kept failing, and Tesla plans kept getting massively delayed. And both projects became over budget and burned through over half of Musk's fortune with very little to show for it. However, Musk said that he'd spend his last dollar on the companies, even if it meant moving into his parents' basement. Number 19. Elon tried to hide the severity of the money issue and keep people focused, but the reality was it got to a point where they couldn't afford any more failures. Engineers had spent years of their lives working on these projects tirelessly, many separated from their families, and after 3 failed rocket launch attempts, they reached their 4th and final attempt. The company was within days of going bankrupt, but Musk stayed focused, and it was a success. They achieved a feat normally attributable to an entire country, not just one company. Number 20. Robert Downey Jr. set out to meet Elon as the real-life inspiration for Iron Man. It was a big stretch to say that Musk was the inspiration for the character, but the press lapped up the comparison and it raised Elon's profile as an eccentric businessman, which he enjoyed. And some of the similarities were hard to deny. Number 21. Elon then bought a house in Bel Air and got into Hollywood party circles. He even produced the film Thank You for Smoking with some former PayPal executives. His author wife Justine kept a blog of their antics, such as Leonardo DiCaprio unsuccessfully begging for a free Tesla. However, the Hollywood party life didn't last so long. The press gradually turned against Elon, and problems at his company started to mount up again, and to make it even worse, his personal life deteriorated and was very publicly written about on his wife's blog as well. For example, how she felt like a trophy wife. His personal problems resulted in a brutal public divorce. Number 22. Elon then met British actress Tallulah Riley, who showed an interest in his work, and the two of them hit it off. Elon told Riley, a virgin at the time, he wanted to show her his rockets. They went back to his place and actually watched rocket videos. Number 23. After just weeks of knowing each other, and her being 22, him being 36, they agreed to marry. They shook on it though, there was no ring. Number 24. Despite numerous scares where the company almost went bankrupt, SpaceX did eventually become hugely profitable with an estimated $12 billion value. SpaceX still to this day has huge plans to lower space costs, such as making reusable rockets, though many claim this is impossible and a waste of Elon's time. If they can pull it off though, it will change space exploration entirely. Number 25. Jeff Bezos' secretive rocket company, Blue Origin, poached a lot of SpaceX employees, and Jeff Bezos' relationship with Elon Musk soured as a result. Elon is quoted as saying, "Jeff's not the most fun guy." Number 26. Whilst Musk continued to create shockwaves in the space industry, Tesla was also revolutionizing another stalled industry. If you looked at most car ads, their new features were things like a bit more room in the car. But Tesla wanted to not only change the industry, but change the world. Number 27. There were several other unique things about the way Tesla operated compared to competitors. For example, they sold directly to the end customer with their own stores modeled on the Apple Store. Also, the device actually got better after you bought it due to software updates which were remotely installed. For a long while, car companies dismissed Tesla completely, as it looked like a bit of a gimmick, but when Tesla released the Model S, dubbed by many as the best car ever and a computer on wheels, car companies started to panic a little bit. Elon proved that electric cars could be fun and luxurious, and he was actually making something hugely desirable, not just efficient. Number 28. What Musk had done that rivals missed was that Tesla didn't just sell someone a car, it sold them an image, a feeling they were tapping into the future. But they also sold them a relationship, as they provided free charging points with the promise someone could travel the entirety of the USA with no cost. Number 29. Elon's brother was heavily involved in all of this too, and his cousins founded a company called Solar City, which Elon then helped with. He eventually became a chairman and the largest shareholder of Solar City, just in case you thought he didn't have enough to do. Number 30. However, there was logic to this. The company is part of the unified theory of Musk, which is that each one of his businesses is connected in the short and long term. They kind of work together, they're often intertwined in some way and can help each other out. Of course, Elon also has lots of other grand ideas like Hyperloop to transport people between cities in 30 minutes and vertical electric planes. In fact, since the biography about him has been written, Musk has already started developing several other things. He said, "I think this needs to be done, and I don't see anyone else doing it." That really is his approach to solving the world's biggest problems. If someone else isn't doing it, he's gonna take it on himself. Now, whilst that concludes the list of 30 takeaways from the book, I will just add this was a really interesting read. Biographies often give you a much fairer representation of things than an autobiography, and so I definitely recommend checking out the book if you're interested in understanding more about Elon Musk. What's repeatedly stressed throughout the book though, is that Elon really is one of the few people focused on revolutionary innovation and invention, whereas it could be argued a lot of the tech industry has lost sight of that. For example, Peter Thiel's VC firm tagline kind of emphasizes this. It says, "We wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters." Although Twitter have since doubled the character limit, so progress? But anyway, if you are interested in more from Elon Musk, I also highly recommend watching the interview he did with Joe Rogan if you haven't seen it yet. It really encapsulates what a strange but incredible guy he is and the way he just thinks so differently. Of course, the only thing the media picked up from that interview was the fact that he very briefly smoked weed, despite the fact there is literally hours and hours of really interesting and important topics. For example, the fact that Elon is kind of terrified of AI and thinks it poses a real threat to humanity. So it's definitely worth a watch. But right now, I just want to say that I hope you enjoyed this book summary and let me know if you'd like me to do this with any other books. And please give this video a thumbs up if you've made it all the way to the end, it would be very appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.